Uh, we had expected Eric. Maybe he'll be just a few minutes late. So this committee hasn't yet met this year, we don't have a chairperson or a vice chairperson, but the first item on the agenda is to select one.
Okay, okay. Do you want to be president or you want me to be president?
Your choice.
I'll be president. I'm more outspoken than you.
Amen, brother.
President, vice president, we need to vote aye, aye.
All right.
We're all good. Next item. Okay, so. Okay, so second item, the committee will review an overview of the district buildings and how they are currently used and may discuss future maintenance needs.
So,
Okay,
so.
I have a question.
Yes,
before
sir.
we start. Why is this on the agenda? No, this facilities though doesn't mean, in my mind, and never has in previous history, it is the committee for the wastewater plant. It's not a committee for overall buildings. So, I mean, the way I look at this, if it's a committee for looking at the facilities, then when Melissa does her master report, she's not gonna be able to put anything in there on buildings, and so is Tom. And all of that stuff has to come to this committee, and I don't think it's ever done that, so I don't understand.
So I can provide a little bit of background and then I'm happy to review the language. We had a request to have a review the current building status, and my initial inclination was current buildings, and maybe more to that, but my recollection was, okay, we haven't used facilities committee meeting in that sort of broad way before, and you're right, I've in my time here, it's been more like the utilities review, water and sewer issues, including land and whatnot at those wells and whatnot. We have items that are related to it. But I went back and reviewed the description. I'm bringing it up now, so I can read it to you. Or I can actually bring it up on the screen. Your bylaws define the standing committees, facilities being one of those. And what it says about the facilities committee is the board's facilities committee shall be concerned with the maintenance and operation of all land, buildings, and facilities. If the committee determines that policies, programs, or projects need to be addressed, a recommendation shall be made to the board of directors. So nothing more, nothing less. But I think Wayne's correct in that, in general, this committee has been tasked with water and wastewater utility issues specifically.
I mean, I'm good friends with Bill Van Orden, who was 17 years as general manager back into the 90s. And it's never functioned that way. And that's my only question. I mean, I don't disagree that the things that are on here to talk about shouldn't be talked about. I'm just saying that I'm not sure that all of a sudden everything is put on the facilities committee, and I'm not sure they're in Justin's schedule of work. And so, I mean, for him to all of a sudden have to be in charge of the facilities, I think is more than he needs on his plate right now. So anyway, that's just my thought.
Yeah, I mean, I think from the perspective of how has the items that we're gonna review now been dealt with, they haven't been dealt with in a big broad picture, maybe by a committee in the recent past. But items that relate to issues at the community center have been handled by Parks Recreation and the Solid Waste Committee, and items that deal with the fire station have been handled by the fire committee. And items that deal with a boardroom or have been handled by finance and administration.
I mean, I just got the fire committee agenda and one of these topics is on that also, so. As far as a building,
Well, it was, I made a comment in one of the board meetings and Naveed said, well, you're on the facilities meeting, so you'll be discussing that then at the facilities meeting, which was the expansion of the fire department and whether or not we should look at something else besides doing a whole new renovation. And so, I don't know.
yeah, me either. I mean, I don't disagree that that subject shouldn't be talked about, but I'm not, I mean, historically, I don't think. I mean, if we talk about it here, then they're gonna talk about it again in the fire committee. And so now you got 4 board members that are, you know, I don't either, I don't know.
Yeah, it's up to you how you like to move forward. I do think we've historically used the facilities committee like it was the utilities committee, but I never bought, you know, this is how your bylaws read and so I think it's okay that the facilities committee receive this overview. I think it would be a stretch to have the facilities committee take on a fire station expansion role.
I mean, according to the way, from what I just heard you read, this committee would look at the maintenance, not the building and how it's operates and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I think it could, but again, this is not how we view, I mean, so for example, park issues. Those have been, every single time we have a parks, recreation, solid waste issues, we're talking about parks maintenance and park issues. Those have never been handled by the facilities committee. Yet if you read this in a very literal sense, it says land, buildings and facilities. So, you know, I think there should be a truing up and maybe that means that this committee gets redefined, but.
If I may, I mean, I would suggest we go ahead with the agenda as is. And then put it on the board agenda to decide how the board wants to,
If we should
change the committee definition of all of this.
Okay, well, let me,
It's okay with you. I mean, we can go ahead with what we're doing here.
Well, is there? Well, okay, let's come back to that. Let's go ahead with the agenda meeting.
so we put together just kind of an overview of the district's main buildings, not wells, not parks, restrooms, or things like that. The main facilities that the district has, just but in kind of big picture terms. So this is the district office and this is the board, the front of the boardroom. You know these things. And then the front of the fire station. This is all one building that contains all 3 of those uses. And then we just put floor plans in for each of these facilities. We had floor plans the floor plan that's shown here includes the fire station, the proposed fire station expansion. And the reason this is the version that you're getting is because all the other versions of the floor plans were out of date. There had been minor remodels to the building since those floor plans had been put together. So if you ignore the real bolded parts, this lighter gray is the existing facility. This, of course, this main area here being the district office, the lobby, this is actually, this is incorrect. This office right here does not exist. So even this is a little bit out of date. These are the restrooms and so forth and so on. The boardroom is shown here. This is this conference room that's right behind us. The office that Tina Meyer used here. And then the fire station offices, the lobby. This area here shows configuration changes that were proposed to be made as a part of, or as a separate phase, but as a part of the fire station expansion. So this area here, what's shown here is a little bit inaccurate compared to what exists today. And then you'll see the proposed fire station expansion, which is, this is the ground floor right behind the engine bay. And then this is a second floor, which sits above this new area. And then this room here that's kind of in light gray labeled as conference room. This is the existing fire station living quarters, and it sits above, this area right here. It sits above the existing building. So this is this is just a snapshot of what exists and what was proposed to be added. What remains is still proposed to be added.
And so when we're getting the modular has what in it that's replacing on this? Cause you have 1, 2, 3, 4, you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 bedrooms up there, sleeping quarters up there. So is that what the modular has, 2 plus, or?
No, I mean, if we haven't bought a modular, but right, that's one of the concepts would be to take the modular that was and put it there as a temporary, a short-term, measure. And, that would be a 3-bedroom, 2-bath modular building.
And so were they gonna continue to use the upstairs for sleeping quarters?
No,
No, the 3-bedroom, 2-bath was going to accommodate everything.
yes, right, well, right now we have, with very rare exceptions, we have 3 persons on duty overnight. Prior to the Safer Grant, we had 2 persons on duty. We did have a couple of days here early February when we got, when we were doing some staffing where we had additional persons because of, the OES had us upstaff an engine for, possible flooding, where we had additional personnel. But in general, we have a 3-person overnight staff during, with this Safer funding. Right now, as you might recall, and I don't know how much detail you want to give to the fire station operation. This is again, this room up here is 2 bedrooms in this back kind of corner. 1 here and 1 here. And the 3rd person is sleeping in a converted office. We used to have 2 offices down in the front. One of the offices that's right in this area here was converted into a bedroom for overnight accommodation.
And when is the proposed modular to be purchased?
It is not, it's not been determined.
Has not been determined. And we looked at the fire expansion, the reason that we didn't take over this boardroom for bedrooms was because the whole place was gonna have to be sprinklered. Is that why?
I really couldn't say, this is already sprinklered. So I don't know to what extent, I know a couple of people just mentioned possibly, having the fire station expand into either the boardroom or the district office in lieu of another expansion. But that was really never, thoroughly vetted. Maybe it was conceptually discussed, never thoroughly vetted. Obviously, we have to replace all the the existing uses. You can kind of see from a sort of scale point of view, the expansion that was proposed, this 2-story expansion is, maybe something like double the size of the existing, or 150% of the existing district office and boardroom. But that's not to say that it couldn't still be an option or a shorter term alternative. And if you're talking about maybe things like what are some easy options, because we continue to explore options on the fire station expansion, because again, we've got a lot of shock value with this big ticket expansion idea. The fire chief has continued to look at, hey, could we potentially convert the upstairs of this area? That's an item that we plan on briefing with the fire committee next week, although it doesn't look very promising for structural reasons. This boardroom, it has a fairly modest level of usage. I mean, it's convenient. We use it for board meetings, other meetings, but maybe 10% of the time or something like that, it's in use. Could these uses move to like the community center? I think that would be kind of low hanging fruit and possible if it was going to provide some real benefit to somebody else or for another purpose. I think that certainly could be done without much impact on other programs and service.
Yeah, because it looks like if you only need 3 bedrooms and bathrooms, you could fit them in this room here and then move this room's use over to the community center. And then your cost goes way down because you're just doing a single story expansion for that back part, and it would facilitate getting somebody out of, sorry, what? Oh,
Sorry.
would provide a bed sooner for somebody versus sleeping in converted office, but I don't know now if that's our job or if that's somebody else's job for the committee to look at. I mean,
So, I mean, we use the fire committee, so I think there's a few alternatives for that the board would have to decide upon if there was gonna be a committee kind of overseeing additional concepts to be explored, but you know, the fire committee, we ran the architectural drawings through the fire committee last, a couple years ago. And so that's, the fire committee reviewed various iterations of what you see here, a couple of them, I guess. What you see here, but to my knowledge, no committee's taken on kind of another, sort of stab at this or really seriously explored, how much could be gained by giving up the boardroom. But I do think it is, if there is something to be given up, this is the sort of low hanging fruit because it doesn't get a ton of use. Now, would it be a permanent, could it be viewed as a permanent, fill a permanent need? That's, up for, I think, further debate. And I certainly wouldn't wanna speculate, and we don't have the because this isn't the fire committee, I don't have the fire chief scheduled to attend facility committee meetings, et cetera.
well, I think because I was on the fire committee when we looked at this, and the thing is that we like this, thought it's great until we got to the sticker shock of it.
How much it was, yeah.
Because there's by the time we raise 5 million, the cost would be 10 million. And so, the thing is that 5 million doesn't get raised overnight. And so what do we do in the meantime? And, I think that you need somebody to evaluate what's going over on in the Park and Recs building, what's going on in the community center, what's going on in here, and is there a way of shifting uses around?
So, yeah, and we've got the calendar of those items. This doesn't show up very well. Let's see if I can blow this stuff up a bit. So, just again, without being very scientific, just as a kind of a quick kind of quick snapshot. This is a calendar of what gets used we're talking about the boardroom. We've got, we hold staff meetings in here. Those could be held in the community center? Yes, if they're, we'd have to book that time. Or they could be held in our conference room. We used to hold them there, but it's kind of turned into a bit of a storage room too. We have board meetings in here. Those can be held in the community center, again, with planning. That would be a more significant undertaking in terms of moving our technology. There'd be a cost associated with that. But those could be accommodated. We have Templeton Youth Baseball that comes in here a couple of twice a month maybe, or second Tuesday of the month. These are the reoccurring ones. We've got Templeton Youth Football in here on Wednesday evenings once a month. The GSA committee meets in here. All of those things could probably take place in the community center. It's a bigger room, but unless there was a direct conflict. And then on Thursdays, we have Lynn CSD uses this boardroom for their board meetings. Nacimiento committee meetings are in here 5 times a year. Those could be moved. If we freed up the community center. TAG meets in here. There's a hard TAG meeting once a month, but TAG uses this room for committee meetings as well. So they're probably in here 2 or 3 times a month on average. And then we had some other just random things. TAG was in here a couple times, once in February, once in April. This is a fire training officers. The room gets booked by the fire department for meetings, and we use it for interviews. There's other things that probably aren't showing up here that the room gets used for. Let's see, we had, again, here's a couple more times on the Wednesdays that TAG was in here. TAG uses the room more than you do. And then again, here's another Temple Youth football meeting on a Thursday afternoon, and we have committee meetings here. So that's what showed up under that calendar. So we did the same thing for the community center in terms of you know, its calendar, and it's in your packet here as well, and how, what gets used in there. It's similarly underutilized in general, I would say, more so post-COVID. Pre-COVID, it had a greater use, but post-COVID, it's got some standing meetings in there. Churches on Sundays. This used to have a church in here every Sunday too, pre-COVID. Some other programming, but there's obviously capacity. There might be some coordination issues, but it's not as though the community center couldn't take on the items that are held in here. Again, there would be more scheduling conflicts because there'd be more, you know, the demand of both facilities into one, but I think it's entirely doable. It would take, again, a little coordination, some planning, but the bigger issue would be, there'd be some costs of relocating equipment, bringing technology into, bringing Wi-Fi and such into the community center. And then, but before we would do that, I guess I'd want to make sure that there's some real value in making this available for fire. I mean, there was going to be some savings that would be realized somewhere else. So,
Well, I think savings and then offset projection are always going to take us to put $5 million into the fund to be able to fund this. Is there a way of projecting when we would be able to undertake the expansion of the fire station?
well, we have about $3 million now in the capital fund. We'll be required to spend about $350,000 of that on the new fire engine, the matching dollars to the federal grant. This was really two projects, two phases. The expansion component, which was the bulk of that, my recollection was something like $3.5 million was expansion, or sort of $4. And then there was some remodeling of, again, this downstairs, and that was something like $1 million, a little more than $1 million. You could pull up those figures, but it would have to have been done in phases, although at the time we were putting this together, it was thought that, you know, that second phase could be done immediately after the first phase, but, you know, financing would obviously dictate that.
And why did we come up with the need for 6 bedrooms?
Again, I think that's a better question for Tom Peterson to answer. It was more about the ability to expand our programs, run a sleeper program where we could accommodate more firefighters at night, not for on-duty purposes, but for if we house them, then they're available to respond on other instances. But again, I don't.
Do we have the funds to pay for that?
No, I think the idea is it wouldn't necessarily cost more if you provide housing for them. Then they're like kind of our reserve firefighters, but they can actually live here seasonally. We don't have a need for six. We couldn't fill 6 bedrooms today with our current staffing. As a matter of fact, those were some of the things we kind of had thought about. Could we or would we have left some of these unfinished, as you know, as far as if we were to implement this today, maybe some of the rooms would be initially unfinished, etc.
Where does the second floor sit right now? Because you have an upstairs right now and it's not over the clean room.
The upstairs right now, this conference room, this is the second floor, and it sits over this area right here.
Oh, and it's only that.
It's this piece right here. This
It's
is
that
the
piece right
existing
there.
second floor.
So in reality, you could get rid of the second floor entirely, put 3 bedrooms or something possibly down in this room. And then if it needed to be expanded, bedrooms upstairs where the conference room is. And not have all the other stuff.
Actually, our fire chief's attending a station design conference in May. Just to try to get more ideas about expansion concepts and, you know, what haven't we looked at that we ought to look at, etc. So,
Well, I mean, I think to me, the cheapest thing is to do is to convert or to condense uses when we've got uses that aren't filling the rooms, and then expand into the existing stuff and get our firefighters taken care of. But I don't know what our role is today, so.
You know, again, I'm not prepared to discuss any of this because I haven't received the background. I didn't even realize we were gonna be getting into this. We don't have Tom here to answer some of these questions. So, and again, I think it should be put on the board agenda, how we wanna even maybe make another committee specifically for facilities. I mean, I don't see how that can be dropped on Justin's head because he's got enough to do, so we may wanna have another committee, which is all fine. And I don't disagree with anything I've heard, but I haven't heard, I don't have the background, Tom's not here, so.
yeah, I think if there's going to be a revisiting by a committee of the fire station expansion, then the board ought to decide that that's something that they want done and assign it to a committee.
But if you're trying to look at, I mean, I understand in the description you read, it was maintenance, so we're supposed to look at maintenance of all the buildings. And then you did say land use in there too. So like, if the fire committee is looking at the expansion or what you can do with the fire department, then that doesn't give them the ability to look at what's in the park and rec and what's in the community center. Like, so I like who coordinates that? I thought that's what this committee was doing, but so I expected this because that's what Naveed led me to believe what was gonna go on. And apparently this is what you thought too from the PowerPoint.
Yeah, I just grabbed information that we had that was readily available. We put this stuff together for each of the buildings. So for example, here's the Lens Place or the recreation building, just a view from the street, and we put together a layout of this, we didn't put this together, we found this is really an evacuation plan, but it does show all the walls and it's current. And so when you walk in that building off of Main Street, it's kind of upside down, but if you walk into this building off of Main Street, there's this lobby. You know, John Doss sits right here. Typically, this is in this front office area. You know, Mel and Bree's offices are in here. There's a counter that sits across here for, you know, where the community members usually stay on this far side. And then this great room, as it's labeled, this was the book room when the library used it. It's where preschool is housed out of. Preschool occupies this room here. Well, preschool occupies, let's say, everything but the recreation office in general while they're in operation, where they have access to all these places. And then we've got, you know, restrooms. We've got, this is labeled a computer lab, but that's really because this was put together back when this was an after school drop-in center. This is really a storage room now. This is labeled an office, and it could serve as one, although it's also storage, etc. And this is the room that's kind of more permanently set up for preschool, but we have low tables. It would be hard to have anything else in this room as long as preschool's there, because it's pretty full of their supplies. This room is quite open and can accommodate other uses when preschool is not in the facility. And this room is probably more flexible as well. Is that fair?
Yeah.
So,
Well, it seemed, I mean, when I walk into the rec department, it seems like you guys are busting at the seams and need more space. Am I wrong?
I feel like we have enough space. I mean, we're definitely using all of the space we have, right? But there's times, you know, where the facility is available for other uses, like more after hours uses, right? For like rentals and stuff. But yeah, I mean, it's pretty well occupied like right now, it's after school time. So a bunch of middle schoolers are out there, like either doing homework in the big room or playing basketball in the backyard, right? Like it also kind of doubles as a bit of a safe place to drop in, you know? So, yeah, but,
But for you to run your sports agendas and your
Right.
staffing, you have enough room between the front office and the lobby?
generally, yeah. yeah.
Generally, yeah. And so, because I know I walked through with Jonathan.
Was it John or, yeah.
Yeah, it was Jonathan, and there's a bunch of storage in the computer and the office space. And so.
We could put everything in the office space into the storage room, right? Which is labeled the computer lab right there. But it becomes more difficult to access those things quickly, right? Cause I like to be able to walk into the room and navigate through the storage room. So we store like extra tables and these old hoops that are during basketball season there at the schools, right? We could also store them in an offsite shed, right? But they're like $800 hoops, so I prefer to have them in a building that's armed than an offsite shed that's easier to crack into.
Right.
But there's definitely other options, especially for that office, right? That office space. Yeah. I mean, it used to be where we stored all of our equipment in the sheds, right? At Bethel Park or Evers, and we'd have to, every time someone needed a catcher's mask or something, I'd have to run over to Bethel and grab it, right? So, or German Park, right? But so it's easier now to have that storage space, so. And because that space is available to us, we tend to take it up, right? If that space were not available to us, we would find other ways to maneuver, so.
And do you, right now, how do you take payment in? Because they don't pay at the front counter here, right? Do you, like, how do you run payment through for the different?
Oh, yeah, they come in, they'll pay at our counter, at the rec department, they pay us. Cash and check or, you know, credit cards we bring over here and run for them.
So you have to come down here to get everything paid.
Well, yeah, and we have to bring all the money over here daily, so.
But
Which we'll likely maintain, even if we have different systems in place, so.
And we've moved to more and more people are using online
Right,
methods of
yeah.
payment, right? And there's very few programs that there isn't an online
Yeah, absolutely,
registration opportunity. And so, I don't know, the bulk of the people are paying online,
they do.
register, paying.
Some of the folks will come in because they don't wanna pay the fees that are associated, like all the extra fees we pass on to them, right? As far as like credit card processing, so people will come in with checks because there's no associated processing fee for the check, right? But
So, yeah, so this is still, these wall locations are accurate.
Yep.
For that building, and there's a little, Mel put together a little calendar of what's in the building. And this was in your packet too, or attached, I guess it wasn't attached, available. So we have preschool, Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays. Although there's a number of weeks and months when preschool doesn't occupy the building. In the mornings. So the preschool is our regular user in several of those rooms. And then we've got, once a month, softball and soccer board meetings that are housed there. Let's say,
we have a charter school.
Charter school.
That comes in, yeah,
draft club. On Fridays.
pretty regular. And the preschool is talking about expanding on the Fridays. For next school year. They operate on kind of school calendar, so.
One
We'll
thing
have a
that's,
summer camp.
the preschool program is a lot more like preschool of yesteryear. It's not a daycare, it's not a substitute for daycare, it's not every day, it's not year round, et cetera.
Yeah, it's very much like educational based.
Uh,
Preparatory preschool.
And then we've got other, we had some other users in here, but in general, the room is available if, you know, 4-H used to meet in there. I don't, are they meeting there much now? I guess maybe not recently anyway.
What is that, sorry?
4-H?
No, they don't really, they have the Legion Hall, so the person who leads 4-H is also responsible for the Legion Hall, so they tend to meet there, it's free.
Used to have that dance thing in the morning over there too, right?
Yeah, no, we don't have that anymore, they canceled, we used to have, yeah, the Zumba classes, right? Yeah, but she had a hard time maintaining, like regular class attendance.
Participants.
And we, our class, what most people would call like community classes, operate very differently than anywhere I've ever been, right? They, where we use them as rentals, so the sort of success or failure of the class is on the instructor, right? So we don't really advertise them, we don't sign people up for them, they rent the space and people show up, right? So
Sure, that makes it easier on you.
it makes it easier for
Yeah,
us, for
easier for
accounting,
yeah.
absolutely. So,
But we don't have a lot of that going on.
but that's also, yeah, sometimes can preclude a lot of those kinds of programs, so.
Anyway, so there's capacity in that building. As well for other similar, other related uses, and usually they can be accommodated if somebody wanted to use the room for some reason. The community center, you know this building, here's its layout, this is original, but it hasn't changed much. There's a lobby from Main Street. These little squares are like skylights that are cutouts into the ceiling. There's a side door, hallway, restrooms here in this hallway. And then this is the room, the building that has a kitchen. Actually, has a fail kitchen to be used by users of the building. And this is the building that's probably seen the most changes kind of post-COVID, in terms of its uses. We still do have some I just reviewed these actually. We have some groups that do meet here regularly, Rockhounds. This is a musical program that's in there. The women's club's in there. Once a month we have the North County Women's Connections. Lions Club, actually didn't realize they were still meeting in there. And then some periodic other uses. TRF typically meets in there. On Sundays, we've got some churches, and then there've been a number of kind of parties, whether it's, usually those are on Saturdays. So the room has a lot of, again, additional capacity. I think it would be doable to move the uses from this room to that room if there's a reason to do so. It's not more convenient, but the barriers should not be seen as something that, I wouldn't have, if this room could be of more value, we can move all the uses that take place here most uses that take place here could be moved to the community center. And we wouldn't overburden that room. And then this is just an overhead view of the wastewater treatment plant buildings, not the whole plant, but just the buildings. This is a little misleading, and this is really kind of a carport or a covered equipment storage, tractors and vehicles. And this is the main shop building. You probably used to walk, if you come here for a meeting or something, the main door is here. And really this is just the only area that is like a building, like it used as a building, is this first, let's say 20% of this. These are shop doors for equipment storage and maintenance, etc. This is an open kind of carport on the end. So like Justin sits right there. Or he's got a desk right there. And then this is another building. There's a lab in here and storage and whatnot. So, I don't know how much, what other topics you wanted to cover with this. We did put together kind of a list of some maintenance items that will need to be addressed in the coming years. If that's something you wanted to review, I'm happy to pull that up and go through it for these same buildings.
I don't know if Jesselyn gets 20% of that building. That's a lot for one thing.
No, it's.
I think we should move a whole bunch of things in there with you.
That's right.
Everybody wants to.
This is also, this is the Lakeview property as well.
Uh-huh.
I mean, I guess I would like to see, seeing as, to me, this is the utilities committee, is more information on what Justin needs out there, if anything, or what's going on out there. I mean, it's the first time I've really paid any attention to that, other than the times I've been on cooler. You know, the other stuff I realized kind of what's going on, I have no idea. Probably maybe that's my fault for
Yeah,
not
we-
going
no,
after
we
it,
didn't-
but.
We didn't, okay, so.
What does he need for maintenance, if anything? I mean, we gave him a part-time secretary, which I think is way overdue. But as far as the maintenance out there, I don't know. So, I mean.
So,
I'd
yeah,
like to
we
hear
did,
that.
we do identify a few items that are necessary. We think, this whole area, this, again, like, I'll call it like the fruits. This image isn't very helpful for you, but this area that's enclosed, conditioned space, maybe I'll use that term, conditioned space area, is gonna need some new flooring at some point in the near future. There's been some water damage, and, it's not a very big area. And then Justin identified, you know, and rightly so, that we really never properly dealt with like, changing rooms, locker space, restroom space for our utility crew. And that's, right now, if you walk into that room, there's a, you know, those folks sort of start and end their day and have lunch in kind of one space. There's kind of a conference room, but in there you'll find, you know, sets of boots and clothes and all these other things, because that's where that's where they change. Is that fair?
It's fair, yeah.
So their workspace is also like a locker room, lunch room, it's all it's all shared space, it's all the same space where all those activities take place. And there is this locker room need is, you know, while maybe it hasn't been pressing, it can be, you know, our folks are exposed to things like, you know, untreated wastewater, other dirty conditions where I wouldn't want, like, you wouldn't want, chemical exposure. You don't want to bring that into the space where you're eating. And so if there was an ability to have a separate entrance where there was a proper locker room and a place to take off muddy, dirty, exposed clothing, wash yourself before you ate lunch, that kind of thing, that would be more sanitary. Is that what you kind of have in mind, Justin?
That's right. Yeah. Yeah,
And is there a need for water and dryer there?
there are agencies that do install washers and dryers. We do have a uniform service, which is greatly appreciated. That's gone a long way to help out our employees, their health and safety, with having those fresh, clean, laundered uniforms at an industrial cleaning service has been wonderful. And now they just don't have a place really to change in and out of those garments through the day, through the week. And as Jeff was just mentioning, when you're applying pesticides or you're working in wastewater, you're in the ponds, performing work on aerators all day in a boat on the ponds. You come in and you're gonna have lunch or something, to be able to have that locker room, restroom, showers would be very helpful.
Where do you store the uniforms when they take them off until the cleaning people come, or the uniform people?
Yeah, we do. We're making use, as we do with what we have. And so there's a room in between the restroom and, their break room where we have all of these things stored, all of their garments, their uniforms. Put a bench in there so they could sit down, change out their boots and get dressed. You know, there can be up to 9 people using that facility in a given day. And there is the one restroom. And then, like I said, to get to the restroom, you're kind of going through the changing area. So we just make do however, you know, of this that we can right now. And so then you have boots, as Jeff was mentioning, and those could have just come out of a wastewater pond, or they could have just come out from, you know, from the rain, what have you, pesticide spraying, those sorts of things. We're trying to try and keep those things, as Jeff mentioned, outside of our office space as much as possible. Those things can carry on into your eating area. It's pretty astonishing when you turn off the light and they do that light test where the pesticides and those sorts of chemicals travel, how easily they travel. And so we're mindful of that, and we try and keep everybody as safe as possible, try and have everybody change in another makeshift room inside of our shop space. So outside of the 20% that Justin has, there's a passage, there's a little walkway inside of the shop that they try and take off their boots to, and there's lockers out there, but then that's not really tied into the office space or the restroom.
Usually more like a storage room. It's like a.
Really, yeah.
Yeah, that actually could be an option. We, we didn't try to bring you a lot of details here because this was just a concept of, what do we need in the long term out there? And yeah, we probably should look at converting some of that, building a changing room. So not only is it what we're doing right now is we've kind of outgrown it maybe from the number of people, but once you start talking about, accommodating multiple genders, and we don't have multiple bathrooms or even really a place for somebody to change in privacy, if they chose to. Now, most of our crew is probably gonna come to work already in their uniform with their work boots on and kind of ready to go. These are circumstances when you're, if somebody wanted to change before going home, got themselves, soiled, or it was wet, muddy conditions where you didn't want to drag that stuff in your
I
car.
wouldn't wanna go in my car in that, I'd wanna change.
Yeah.
Get out of bed. But then
Yeah.
what we need.
So-
Okay, so then. We need to have somebody take a look at it and draw plans and get a budget for it.
What was the last time we had a master plan for the?
Well, yeah, 10, 11 years ago. Well, that's actually really we have on the budget right now, a wastewater master plan, and although that's really a big, it's not necessarily designed to be limited to the wastewater facility, it's system wide.
Understood, but yeah.
But yeah, I think we could fold in some needs like we just described into that, and at least in terms of a
Absolutely.
conceptual scale,
Absolutely.
rough ballpark of cost, that kind of thing.
So when would that happen?
So
Soon.
well, it would be happening now, but we lost about 8 months because we don't have a district engineer to kind of help get that project moving forward.
And we're still trying to make some progress with that. We, just recently, we hired a survey team to survey the collection system. And once they've, accomplished that, they can give that data over to another consultant who's finishing up our wastewater collection water model. That piece of the puzzle is really all that we were waiting for, to then go out with an RFP for our wastewater master plan. And our water model will be complete on the wastewater side, and we can go out for that complete wastewater master plan.
But I think your point's well taken, that we can ensure that when we put this RFP together, we cover some of the shop employee needs issues, things that may not have normally been covered or automatically been covered. So that at least we get some sort of budget level or concepts as a part of this, like in addition to upsizing a pipe or upsizing a pump, we also say, well, we also should allocate 300 grand for remodeling the shop or whatever it ends up being.
I think there's some low cost opportunities too, using that existing, if we can just expand kind of that office
Addition
space.
phase into that storage room.
Absolutely. I think there's room there that we can grow into that room, that storage shop area, without having to construct an altogether new office space.
Yeah, this doesn't need to be incredibly expensive. It's just something that hasn't been addressed yet.
It is due to provide better services to it and to.
I don't know I don't know what that will be. And actually, I don't even know if that building it might already be sprinklered.
So I'm sorry, did the survey crew already complete the survey work?
Their schedule, has their project is supposed to be completed by the end of this fiscal year. So middle of June, something along those lines, we should have that survey complete, that information sent to our consultant that's already under contract, been working on the water model for the wastewater side. They had completed the water side, and they were, they just need that survey information to be able to complete the wastewater. We can send out an RFP. I think the next agenda item is the district engineer, so very hopeful, very promising to have district engineer on board again with us. And we can get that RFP out right away. And really start making some progress with this wastewater master plan, water master plan as well. Both of
I'm
us.
assuming Twin Cities surveying, did the survey work?
I believe MBS is
Oh,
the,
yes, did, okay.
yes, and they will be concluding that work. I believe it's the middle of June. Yeah,
That's good.
So like I said, we did put together like a little listing of other building maintenance needs for the community center, the recreation building and this building. If you wanted to review that, if you don't, that's fine. We can move on to other topics. It's really up to that wasn't something that we had available for your packet, so it's been more recently developed, but we're happy to, like, we've already gone through an hour and we're only on item number 2, so I didn't know how much time you want to spend.
Well, I suppose, since we don't know what our job is, I mean, the title of the committee is facilities, not utilities, so I'm thinking it falls under us, but apparently we need to sort that out, so maybe we should move on to the next item until it gets.
Yeah, we can always come back, with this at a later date. Okay.
Well, in the meantime, these items should go to Parks and Rec.
Yeah, they can. We have stuff pulled together now, so. All right, the next item is just an update on the status of the district engineer. This isn't news to you. We have Lori Azim scheduled to join the district starting a week from Monday, May 13th. And we owe a little more information in a formal way out to everybody before she starts, but Lori comes to us well qualified. She's a long time North County, maybe a lifetime North County resident. I know she graduated from Paso Robles High School. She's a Cal Poly grad. She later earned her master's degree in Cambridge. She lives in Templeton. She's been an active community member, has kids in our schools, kids in our recreation programs. She's worked for a couple of engineering firms over the past decade, and for the past 4 years or so has worked for the city of Atascadero as an associate civil engineer. So
How many engineers do they have? Just the one, or do they have a?
at least 3.
At least 3, okay.
I'm not sure if there's that, do you know if there's more?
there's 3 and they were just flying out for another associate as well, but there's 3 currently.
So the city of Atascadero doesn't like us because they said we stole you, we stole Tom, and now we're stealing Lori.
I told them we're not stealing anybody. But yes, it's possible they don't like us.
Okay, and she has, I'm assuming, experience with helping with wastewater and stuff.
She does have wastewater background, particularly from the city of Atascadero, and actually really current wastewater work, because the city of Atascadero is about 2 years ahead of us in this whole implementation of new discharge permit requirements. So there's gonna be some value there. Yeah, she's done a lot of development review work, stormwater. She doesn't have a lot of water experience, but we're gonna make sure that she gets that right away.
Okay.
Anyway, we're really looking forward to having her on board, because we've all kind of chopped up those duties and trying to make do in the meantime. And there's just quite frankly been a few things that just haven't been able to progress without having that position filled. Plattswell, just I don't know, Mel, I don't know if you want to sit through all the rest of these items. You are more than welcome to, but if you're looking for a good opportunity to leave.
Oh, come on, Melissa.
Yeah, I got a umpire softball game tonight at 6, so it'd be good for me to go get some other work done.
Well,
Thank you.
Thank you. Good luck, guys.
Thank you.
Uh-huh.
Thank you.
Thanks for putting together. the
Nice seeing you
information.
again.
Yeah, you too. Santa Marcia.
He beat her up.
I heard, I know. I
Uh,
just called to ask if she was still safe at home. so. Have a good one, guys. Thank you.
He wants to hire you as a bodyguard.
Come in.
Let me try to orient you just real quickly. So this is the railroad tracks here. This, you can't really see it well, but this is the very end of
Cali
Cali
propane.
Propano.
Yes.
Cali Propano. So up at the corner, you wouldn't see it. That's where Wayne's Tire used to be. It's now Discount Tire or America's Tire or something else.
American, I think.
Okay, and then,
Yeah, so-
RV store, Delta RV right over here in this corner. Go down this street, this is here. This is north of the district boundaries, but we've had a long time key water resource at this location. We call this area the Platts area, and we've had at least 6 wells that have been, in this vicinity in the past, 2 that are presently here. The Salinas River, of course, is here, and this is a pretty significant creek. You can probably tell just by the amount of vegetation that grows in here. So there's in the heavy rain periods or heavy wet years, there'll be surface water in this area. So this Justin, you want to just you want to talk about just the failure of the well? You know, this it's now a year ago, but
Exactly, where is the well located?
Yeah.
so there's 2 of them.
The one where the cursor is up at the top is Platts 4. It's a deep well, extremely deep, over 600 feet deep.
Okay,
And so then the one that we're focusing on is down at the bottom of your screen. That's Platts 2. It's a shallow river well, and that unfortunately, the well itself, the casing, as well as everything above ground has failed. And so we were
And there's been problems with this well for many years. This well doesn't have PG&E power to it. So it was operating off of a generator, or not really, maybe that's like a propane
yeah,
engine.
engine.
So it was not utilized very much. And then, do you see the proximity of the well to the river?
Mhm.
Because this is a shallow, what we'll call a underflow well, or it's drawing water from a fairly shallow aquifer, really the subsurface of the Salinas River. We cannot operate this well if there's water within surface water within 150 feet. Because it's so close to the river, that means even if this well were operable today, we could not run it.
Right, because the Salinas River is flowing
It's
right
it's
now.
got water and it has, last year and this year for many months. So this well has been for many years not a very important well for us. Or not one that we utilized very much, but over time, having a well in this area becomes more valuable for the district because we can pick up water that we deposited in Selby or at Creekside, but didn't need when it arrived at its other destinations, whether it was Smith Well or Creekside Well. Let's say we put water in Selby, we don't need it when it passes Creekside because demand isn't there, or passes the Smith Well, so it goes on to the Creekside Well. And if there still isn't demand there, well, then it keeps on flowing. And right now that water is lost. We put it in the ground, but we really didn't have the demand for it, and so it has moved on. This, replacing this well has been an important, has long been sought, with one that was more reliable, or improved. Would give us a third opportunity to pick up that water that is otherwise traveling to Paso Robles and beyond. But in order to do that reliably, it needs to be relocated, and now that it's failed, there's no other option. We don't have an ability to use it, so,
Where are you gonna relocate it?
we're targeting, actually, it can go kind of anywhere in this, sort of north-south. It's gotta stay 150 feet away from the river, so just somewhere in this vicinity.
Yeah, Jeff, so our consultant pinpointed just a preliminary site, well location, just to the north of that fencing that kind of cuts that, just to the, right there, just right where your mouse, right in that general location as being 150 feet from the river. And,
Yeah, and it's also gonna be 150 feet from this ravine area here too, because we have the same issue. So, yeah, it's gonna get, you know, kind of in this vicinity. The issue is we don't own any of this property, we have to work with the property owner to get a well easement.
and that's where we're at
And
right
we
now.
negotiate that, yeah.
That's where we're at right now. We're working with consultants to get surveying and language written up to get easements situated and well specs as well. We've met with a few different consultants and well drillers just to even get cost estimates for what this is all gonna take. And so, but that's where we're moving forward with right now is kind of the legwork to get those easements had.
Yeah, and the specific location will probably come down to where the property owner thinks it will be the least inconvenient, where they are most interested in making available for us.
But what does he use that land for? It doesn't look like.
This is like storage. I'm gonna
Who owns
call
that
it
property?
Delta Propane.
Oh,
And then, so your numbers show that we're actually, that we have water that's bypassing the other two.
Oh,
And that actually would get picked up here. So we
Yeah,
have proof that
there-
that's needed for this.
Yeah, and not only that, but when there's gonna be a time we have a new location where we're delivering Nacimiento water.
Yeah,
And I think it becomes even more, yes, if we're picking up water at Smith 28 months after we discharge it to Selby and 35 months at Creekside,
Mhm.
then let's just say 48 months, we have an opportunity to take it here at Platts River. When we move that Nacimiento turnout to Creekside, and we're going to, and when it happens, it's gonna be a more profound, meaningful, we're gonna be able to pick it up in a much different way than even what was left over from Selby. But there is water that was not used at Smith and Creekside that ends up, it maybe even comes down to the time that we were taking Selby or taking water and perking it down at Selby, and it wasn't necessarily a month that we needed to use it, say at Smith or Creekside, it's during winter time, typically between October and May. We don't have too much of an issue meeting demand and those sorts of things. So it just can be a seasonal thing even. But at Platts River, it may be something.
Yeah, it's
Really
also,
promising for us.
it's also permitted to take our permit water. We have water that flows in the river that's not as a result of our discharges, that we can take that are limited. And having this well active will give us another opportunity to utilize that water.
Like your water.
Yes,
Okay, and so then the Nasi water gets discharged where up at Selby?
yeah, presently at Selby.
And so it will continue to be discharged there?
It can, and we're also trying to get it, a new turnout down at the Creekside
At
ranch area. This is a little different from that, but another crucial part about this Platts
Yes.
River too is the fact that Platts for the deep well last year, it exceeded the maximum contaminant level limit for arsenic. And that's not an immediate, it's more of a chronic kind of issue, but we're looking at this, Platts River also would be a blending opportunity, much like we do at the Creekside River and Deep, the Creekside Ranch area. So it'd be the same sort of situation. It would improve the water quality down at that end of town. And so, and allow us, we're relying heavily these days on Platts for Deep. We're relying on that quite a bit during summertime, and it would help improve that water at that end of town.
Yeah, it would make this well more reliable without adding treatment.
Yeah.
Because if we could blend the water,
Blend the water.
then you can continue to deliver it, because there's nobody who would use the water before the blend would occur.
So besides negotiations with the landowner for an easement, then we need the cost for drilling a new well, and how deep are we going?
It's not very deep.
No, it's anticipated at 100 foot.
How come so shallow?
That's just the make of the type of well.
Yeah, we're looking for
It's a shallow-
we're looking for
And
just
that'll
again this
pick up,
river.
and that'll pick up all the discharge from
Does,
that we put in, because that's pretty shallow.
it is, and so then that discovery in the specs that our consultant Right now, we're working with GSI and then the well driller, and that discovery will be had. They'll zero in exactly if that depth is right or if it's wrong. If that needs to be modified in some fashion, that will be all discovered during that process, and that will be incorporated in the design.
Yeah, so we've really got three things happening. We have, GSI working on the specifications of the well itself and, the location of the well. And then we've begun working with,
Legal.
no, Eileen, John,
Yeah,
MKN.
yeah.
On a two-phase project to do, because this is gonna require, it's a little more extensive than just the well, because we're gonna have to have plumbing and piping and all that to tie all both these wells together, plus SCADA components to operate the well and under what conditions. It's gonna be operated quite a bit differently than the current Platts well was, because that was always operated as an independent unit, and now we're trying to tie those two wells together. They're working on that now, and then, yes, with the surveying, and then with the property owner to secure this easement.
Who's doing the survey work on this?
MBS.
That's the update on Platts well, important strategic water resource for us to get back up.
Are we supposed to make a recommendation?
No, this is just a status update. We have money already in the budget for this.
I have a stupid question. What constitutes the river when you're measuring 150 feet?
Surface water
So if there's no water in the river,
doesn't count. It's like it doesn't exist.
so when we had the big flood out there.
We had to turn off the river. We had to turn off our water at Creekside because even though that well's too close.
The new well is gonna be far enough that that,
Well, it'll be more than 150 feet from the river bank. If this area ever floods, we'll have to do the same thing, turn it off.
Yeah, and it's interesting, this location, it differs from Creekside. Creekside is it's an elevation, I mean, it's right there. At this, almost the same elevation as the river, there's very little, like
4 or 5 feet or something.
very little difference. At the Platts location,
this
you
is-
come up on a bluff and you're up on a plateau looking down the rivers in elevation, it's quite a bit, 40 feet.
Yeah, this is a big drop off down to the river here, whereas at Creekside, it's
Good
like.
point. Yeah.
It's pretty.
So we're 150 feet from top bank.
Yeah.
Which is state jurisdiction and not Army Corps of Engineers is the river itself running the. So we have to be from 150 feet from state jurisdiction.
Well, the 150 feet really comes from anytime there's surface water. So it wouldn't have to be a river. If there was a lake or a pond here, the same issue would apply.
okay, thanks.
All right, so, Nasim, general permit status. We kind of touched on this a little bit, but maybe Justin, you want to just walk the committee through, kind of where we're at, you might recall that we were required about a year ago, we got notified that we were required to make application for a new permit under the new general order. And so we did that last summer.
That's right.
And so maybe you can just fill the committee on what's happened since then, which is not a whole lot, but.
There's not a whole lot. We're still in that application phase. And they allow 2 years for that application phase. There are some things that have to take place in the next 15 months or so.
This is for sewage or water?
This is a wastewater issue.
Water.
Yes.
Okay, because of the flooding problem, is that?
No, this predates the flooding issue. The Regional Water Control Board wanted to issue a new general permit for wastewater treatment plants, entities discharging wastewater to land. And they grouped entities by less than 100,000 gallons to land or greater than 100,000 gallons to land. And so we're above the 100,000. And we were one of the last, I suppose, in that 43, there's 43 entities from Santa Cruz to Santa Barbara that are part of this new general order. And the Regional Water Control Board wanted to kind of standardize, make everybody kind of have a more consistent reporting requirements, thresholds by type of treatment.
Okay.
So if we have ponds,
Mhm.
so that's the type of treatment plant we would be in. There's a few types of treatment plant that they specify. And so we have pond systems, and so we were noticed that we were noticed in May of last year that it's our time, we're gonna be enrolled into the new general permit. And so we turned in our application last July. And so we've been in that application phase. We just had a meeting right before this meeting with the Regional Water Control Board. And they're still reviewing our application. It's very long. There's a lot of materials there to go over, so, I guess the update I wanted to relay is that it's still in review. This year, we've got to make good on updating our operation and maintenance manual. Make good on a time schedule compliance plan, a climate adaptation plan, and a pre-treatment program plan. And so then you may see in the draft budget, a line item for some support from consultants to try and help some of these efforts. Because it's a considerable amount of work with all these plans to turn in. Before the 2 years of application phase is up, we will apply for a TSO, for a time schedule order, and that can buy us up to 5 years, even more of time. That time is supposed to be to hire consultants, to assess your existing facilities, treatment facilities, and find out what deficiencies you may have in meeting the new general permit, and mitigate those with whatever processes, and maybe come up with some alternatives and some costs that then we would bring back, update with everybody before finally embarking on a design of some kind and modifying the existing treatment plant, because the type of treatment plant, the pond system that we have, first and foremost, it doesn't deal with total nitrogen.
Mhm.
And it's not designed to a pond system. And so the new general permit requires a 10 milligram per liter threshold for total nitrogen. It's very low, and it's impossible for a pond system. So
Get there.
you'll probably, so this next 15 months is gonna be in hand possibly with a consultant, working through some meetings with the Regional Water Control Board, finishing the application portion, making good on some of these plans, applying for that TSO, that time schedule order, to buy us another 5 years to assess our treatment plan, come up with some alternatives, and then move forward with some sort of a project to meet, in the long term, meet the general permit, at least in total nitrification. There's some other things that are concerning, like TDS, chloride, and sodium, that simply, we don't really have, there's no way to really treat those three constituents in any kind of feasible, practical way for a community. Reverse osmosis is like the only kind of treatment for those three constituents. And it's so expensive, and the byproducts it makes it so that it's cost prohibitive to even think about it. So there's other things that usually are a part of then mitigating this, minimizing the salts that the board likes to see. Things like code enforcement with salt, water softener type equipment, pre-treatment programs, language in your code trying to minimize out in the community, those sorts of inputs in it, so that we're not degrading the groundwater supplies with this,
And our part of our challenge is our groundwater is already high in TDS, so it's high in the components that make up TDS, so we have a lot of those minerals that are dissolved in the water before we even send it to your home. So, it's impossible to assume that the water quality is gonna improve as it goes through, as it gets used, right? Cause things like, dish soap and shampoo and all these things actually add additional elements that drive TDS higher. And the one thing that's kind of interesting is all the things that our society has done about water conservation, right? When you use less, you know, you're using a lot less water taking a shower today than you did 20 years ago. But your TDS is higher because you were still rinsing off the same amount of soap and shampoo.
So everybody.
So water efficient appliances and things like that just drive up the constituent loading. It's not a bad thing, it's just something to keep in mind.
So are there special detergents and soaps that we could recommend for the community to use?
I'm sure that's, you know, one of the selling point, one of the things that we have to pitch to the regional water control boards here is that we will be focusing our energies in places like that, outreach, public outreach, those sorts of things, rather than install a $10 million reverse osmosis system that we can't afford and it doesn't really have any real value.
So those programs will be probably part of the early phases of implementation. To see how effective they are. So anyway, yeah, but
So to get this application, you fill out the application and there's you have 5 different plans you have to do. But by extending this, extending it for another 5 years, we'll get the application, you have 5 years to complete those plans, is that what am I hearing?
No, those plans will have to be completed by the end of the 2-year application phase. I'd like to think this July 3rd will be the completion of the first year. So we have like,
Okay, I'm confused then,
Yeah.
what
the time
is the
sensitive
5 years gonna buy you?
um,
If you have to have all of these things intact for.
oh, sure. So at the end of our application phase now, or at the end of the application phase, we're not gonna be able to comply with the general permit, especially in meeting total nitrification limits.
Right.
So that's gonna buy us 5+ years to assess the treatment plant and come up with ways to meet the total nitrogen limit. And that buys you, that 5 years buys you getting a consultant to assess the treatment plant, come up with.
Oh, I understand all that, but then I thought you said that all had to be done before we got the application.
For complete,
Or complete.
So I think the confusion is for the application to be complete, he was thinking that you had to have all those questions answered. No, so
We answered them right away, right? I filled out the application last July 3rd and I said, we can't comply with total nitrogen. And so then I already answered that question. They're just going through the 1,000 pages of different documents in this application phase. They take 2 years to go through that. And meanwhile, I have to make good on 4 other plans. Wayne, in this 2-year application phase, I have to make good on a climate.
So by saying we can't do it is the answer.
Yeah,
Okay.
we already said,
Got it.
we can't
I
meet the
understand.
limitation.
So we're gonna be at this for years.
Yeah, okay.
It's a long process.
And actually, this 2-year period is sort of an interactive period. For example,
Yeah.
one of the staff members of the regional board just reached out over the last week on a couple of occasions, trying to get clarification on points. They're probably just looking at our application now,
If you can imagine.
after 9 months.
And they had 43 other agencies to go through, so they have a certain amount of staff as well, so it takes a great deal of time.
Nazi turnout status, you'll recall that, our current, right now, we take, water at the Selby site, this is this site here, at a turnout that sits right here, right where those 2 lines come together. That's that concrete structure, you probably vaguely remember seeing, it's a concrete structure, it's elevated off the ground, it's got a little roof on it and a bunch of piping and equipment. That's technically our turnout. But the Nacimiento Water Project line is way over here, this is purple line. And you'll recall that we had this incident, I say we, but it's a collective we. Technically, the maintenance of this pipeline, this is this green one that comes out here, this is what feeds our turnout today. This is a county flood control district owned pipeline. They own the easements, they own the pipeline, they maintain this section of pipeline, but at our expense. So if there were a line failure there, they would repair it and then bill Templeton for it, because that's how the project is set up, because this doesn't benefit any other user, this turnout line or this service line. Well, right in this area right here, last January 9th, when we had our big flood event, the soils washed all the way and exposed the fiber optics and pretty kind of the top of the line, depending if you would put your finger down there, you'd probably find it. An area the size of kind of like a football field washed away about 2-3 feet deep. Well, the county, after exploring options, decided, or partnering with us, is getting FEMA and Cal OES to fund a study to look at to perform some alternatives analysis about this situation, whether this should be repaired in place, or how best to provide reliable service to protect this issue. And so they looked at we got a draft report maybe 3 weeks ago, something like that, from WSC. And this report looked at really 4 alternatives. One they're calling repair in kind, which is essentially leave everything the way it is and kind of cover up the exposed area with some rock that's specially placed so that it reduces the risk of more damage in that very specific location. That's a really it's not really inexpensive, but that's the least expensive option. It's like $250,000 in this study. And then it looked at 3 other alternatives.
We have to come up with that.
No, probably FEMA would cover like 93% of it. Because of this fund, that's not known yet for
Yeah.
sure. There's 3 other alternatives. This is viewed as not a very reliable fix, because if another incident happened, we don't really know how well that rock would hold up. And plus, the rest of the line, or a lot of other sections of the line, are just as exposed. And if that flooding area had occurred just somewhere else, then the same situation might occur. So it doesn't really provide necessarily like a bulletproof solution. So the study looked at 3 other alternatives. One is to repair this entire segment with rock way down to the scour level, which is like, in many cases, like 9 or 10 feet below the surface of the river. Like excavate all that, pack it all in with rock, so it wouldn't be so the line would be protected under all circumstances. That's more like a $2.5 million alternative. They looked at this at just simply relocating the turnout, so it didn't go through this area with a much larger horizontal directional drill, like kind of underground boring here, and that relocates this pipeline to this location. That's like $2.75 million in the study. And you might recall, this is the one that we were most interested in them exploring, and that was relocating the turnout to our site. We own the property, kind of like here, about 50 acres. This is the current Creekside site. And they looked at relocating this turnout to this location and constructing a new pond. This is from the draft study, so it's not fully accurate. Some of these things are going to change as the study goes on, because this kind of designs the pond or places the pond on out of the floodplain of this upper plateau, which is not where we had intended and probably won't work very well. So this is still in draft form, and that's still being worked on. This ends up being about $3.3 million to relocate it. But the study in its draft form recommends pursuing this alternative. Importantly, I think that's important for us. The county staff is going to be meeting. Justin and I just had a meeting with the county staff and WSC on Monday to review everyone's comments on the draft study or draft report. And there were comments from everybody who had participated. County staff is going to be reviewing some components of this with FEMA, maybe as soon as next Monday. I couldn't remember the exact date or if that was set for sure yet. And then giving us some feedback about FEMA's perspective. Because this cost is so much higher, well, actually, because any of the alternatives are so much higher than just protecting the pipeline with that rock that's just in place. I think there's some concern that FEMA may not go for it, but, yeah, that's where we sit right now. I think it's important that the study does recommend in its current draft form relocating here. This would obviously provide us a great deal of, if FEMA were to fund this or fund most of it, it would provide a great deal of savings to us because this is what we intend on doing. So
So if FEMA doesn't go for that, we have to use the lower one, do we have to do that
on our,
anyway?
yes,
Yes.
yes. What we did learn, remember we mentioned that we were gonna learn a few things about this? One of the things we learned was we because of this scour analysis and soils condition, originally our plan was to bore just until the other side of the river and then do a trench installed pipeline in this floodplain down to this area here. That's what that was our concept. I wouldn't say our plan. We wouldn't have plans for it. That was our concept. I think one of the big takeaways is we've got to get this HDD pipeline because it can be much deeper in the ground, all the way out of the floodplain, so that we don't risk it being exposed. And so the HDD pipe needs to come out here, and then I think we've really conceptually decided we're gonna, all of the infrastructure, as much infrastructure as possible is gonna have to be kept out of the floodplain, so we don't risk losing it in a flood circumstance.
So we're boring completely boring completely underneath the Salinas River.
Yes, all of these, all of
The
the,
options.
well, these two options would do that. Yeah, this
Well,
one
the
here,
purple one would, right?
the purple one would.
But the green.
The green ones would not, because that's existing, and this red one would. The map doesn't show you very well, but they're HDD pipe boring ends like
So
right there.
are you boring from? I guess this doesn't matter at this stage. Are you boring from the tip of the red to where there's the bend in the red, or are you just boring right underneath?
So see where the cursor is right there? From there to there.
To there. Geez Louise, and then the lower one, the purple one down below,
It has a similar condition. I think the boring was something like here, and this would be trench.
What was
installation.
our anticipated cost to do that before?
Well, a little over $3 million, but that included a couple of additional wells. The costs were gonna go, this is a more expensive estimate because the boring is much longer.
yeah.
Just off the top of my head, if FEMA doesn't want to go for it, can you negotiate? I mean, if we're gonna have to spend
I hope so.
$3 million, then we could put up another million or whatever to see if they would then pick
Yeah,
up.
we've actually started talking about what can we, because again, if this becomes a cost issue, they included like the cost of reconstructing this ponding basin at like 321,000.
Yeah.
Plus all these contingencies and project overhead and stuff like that. So let's call it $500,000. We could pull that out and make it more attractive financially, and we take that on. So I think there are some alternatives that we started exploring with WSC and county staff already. Because I said, well, we would be receptive. If in fact
Perfect
somebody's,
solution for us.
yeah, exactly. It would be it would do what we're looking to do.
Right, okay.
After their meeting with FEMA, possibly next Monday, then soon after that, they're gonna be getting with TCSD staff to debrief, kind of go over what FEMA, some of the conversation, some
I
of their
hope so.
feedback. from FEMA.
They're committed to doing that.
But do any of our congressmen or some?
Maybe. I don't know. You know, right now, the county, the gal from the flood control district, her name is Anna. Wayne knows her because she's sometimes as a staff to the Nasi Meadow Commission. She's got a good rapport with FEMA, and she seems to actually like doing this work, which is, nobody likes working with FEMA. They're like the worst. So, I mean, you remember those horror stories from like Katrina and all this, that's the FEMA, we have FEMA people that are still here after a year and 3-4 months from the floods from last year, because there's just a massive bureaucracy. But, she seems to have a good rapport with them and is willing to kind of take this on. This wasn't something that she had to do, you know, so right now, I'd like to just see how far if she can make this work. She thinks that there's, you know, it's just still a chance that they're gonna go for this project. So,
She's the one that took Noah's place last.
Yes, she was sitting right here
Yeah, right.
last week, yeah, whatever. So, yeah, Anna. Anyway, it's all good. This is moving forward. This is, it's unfortunate that this is such an expensive alternative relative to the other. I mean, they're all, the last three alternatives are all expensive. They're all $2.5 million or more. Those are the more robust alternatives. But the report makes an argument that this provides the most benefits. Okay. Wet weather impacts. I can't remember what we put in here. Let's see. And now it might rain again this week. Oh, no, I just had a picture of Selby. I wanted to have a little, just a quick review, just information sharing, because you'll recall that so this is our Selby site. These two ponds right here are the most productive ponds in terms of their ability to percolate water. They percolate the most water. These three are the original ponds. They sit higher. They're not nearly as productive. And these ponds, you might have heard them being referred to as Nasi ponds years ago. These are much larger but less productive. In the meantime, we've used all the ponds for wastewater over time, et cetera. You'll recall last year this pond here got inundated with river water during that January 9th storm, and that kind of created a setback. While that never occurred this year, what ended up happening is we have a couple of factors at the Selby site. One, we have if the groundwater reaches a certain level below the bottom of the ponds, we have a hard stop, no more discharge. And that happened on 3 or 4 occasions last year, and it happened on several occasions this year, although only for a few days at a time, no extended periods. So that in and of itself wasn't particularly problematic. However, we've been facing high groundwater issues really since last January. So like I think it was something that was really interesting, that the groundwater levels in 2022, the entire year stayed below, I don't know, 10.5 feet or something like that. They never got very high. In 2023, including the driest part of the year, they never got lower than the highest groundwater level the year before. So while we had this really wet winter, from the perspective of Selby, winter had lasted all year long because we had high groundwater levels under the river all year, summer, fall, all year. So we were battling discharge, not regulatory limitations, but just practical scientific limitations in terms of the amount of water that can be discharged all year last year, heading into this year. And because of that, we were utilizing all the space all year long. Hit this winter without a lot of capacity at Selby. And during these periods of time when we could not discharge, we're holding water. And then obviously, because of the high groundwater conditions, not as much water percolates. And so just less water went to Selby. So what we found, I think we've been holding water at the wastewater plant since January of this year, or maybe even before.
Perhaps.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
early in the winter, and really all winter long, there's been a balance between sometimes more water was being held and sometimes more water was being released. And so we have a lot of water. We have a similar amount of water right now at the wastewater plant in these what we call storage ponds, treated wastewater that would have normally gone to Selby, as we did last year, even though we didn't have as severe of a winter because of those, I think really the cumulative impacts.
Right, it's the cumulative impacts of the flow keeping going.
But we haven't had to, we're still percolating everything. And I think our big concern at this point is just will that stored wastewater turn to the point where the water quality diminishes so badly that it becomes damaging to, or it's harmful at Selby. And I don't know, Justin, we haven't talked about this in a little while, if you think that's gonna happen, or.
It will. We ended up getting quite a bit of that water out in end of March and the beginning of April. That stored water. There is still quite a bit of water, that storage pond holds 43 million gallons, so there's still quite a bit of water in it. And absolutely, it's been a real challenge trying to maintain and keep these ponds perking to the best of their ability when the groundwater is so high. And that was really, from me, I just wanted to share how challenging it's been for staff to get in there and with groundwater elevated, that water doesn't want to go into the ground and trying to take, discharge to one to another on a day, multiple times a day, turning it to different ponds, trying to dry one out to be able to, and I'll say later, thank you very much for the equipment. I'll say later, there's an agenda item for me to say thank you, but to be able to get into our perk ponds with the new skip and drag, for instance, in a whole, it's just an entirely different, ability, more efficient way, get in there and be able to clean out and maintenance these ponds, but it's been very trying. It's been very difficult, very challenging for staff to juggle these different perk ponds and try and maintain them with such a high elevated, groundwater, issue.
But the good news is we have still percolated every gallon of water is going to Selwyn. We haven't lost any to the spray fields. That's kind of our backup plan. If we were, if we were concerned that we were running out of storage space and we would start running the spray field. As you know, the reason we don't want to do that is if we use that water in the spray field, then it's not available as a water supply down the road. So by storing it and discharging it later, we're preserving almost all of that capacity, all that water capacity or that water supply for future uses.
But at the same time, if we're not picking it up downstream, then it doesn't hurt us.
It doesn't hurt us as much, but it's still, it's all into our factors about our ability to continue to operate the system. In other words, we track how much water we can put down there, and that flows into your water supply calculations. So, anyways, I think the fact that we've had two, if two kind of one super wet winter last year, and then this winter was maybe 30% wetter than normal. The back-to-back years have compounded that, this sort of problem. So I don't know how long we probably are gonna face similar conditions, well into this summer, because again, the lake is still spilling, the rivers are still running, creeks are still running, and it's supposed to rain on Saturday. So,
I doubt it, but they're backing off of that.
This last year, it affected our Nasi discharge as well, and so, we'll be doing everything that we can to be able to maintenance those ponds and encourage as much, discharge for Nasi water to Selby as well. This summer, we'll be trying to get in there and get Nasi delivery as much as we can. We were down last year, and so we'll be trying to do everything that we can. It's just a real challenge.
yeah, it is. The other thing is we don't have as much operational flexibility in the summer. In the wintertime, we can store this water and the water quality doesn't diminish rapidly because we don't have a lot of daylight and the heat, so the algae doesn't grow. But the circumstances change a lot in the summer, and so we need to get that water out of the plant in real time, because if we try to store it on site, the water quality will tank, and then you'll have no choice but to spray it, or we'll have all this other kind of downsides of that. So anyways, no real problem, just challenges,
Good job, staff.
Yeah, I do have one question though. I've heard for years, even way back when Jay was here, that those ponds needed major work or they'd be useless in 10 years or something to that effect.
How many years ago was that?
10 years.
No, so what ended up, really the issue is it all comes down to water quality. There's a number of factors there. Yes, the ponds are not ideal. The type of sand, we did some remediation of some of the ponds in 2000. We brought in some, a type of sand that doesn't clog up as quickly and put it in some of the ponds. But really it comes down to water quality. If the wastewater treatment plant can treat the water to a steady quality without too much suspended solids, they take it. We haven't put any water in the spray fields except for maybe ensuring that they still work in 4 years.
Is
It's
that
very
then
limited.
that they had to go, I mean, what needed to be done, as I understand it, so that might be all wrong, but you had to go in there with bulldozer like and take out all of the sludge and stuff at the bottom and get rid of it. Or there wouldn't be,
Enough,
it would
yeah.
keep building up and there wouldn't be enough room to put the water.
Oh, okay, so, the sludge issue is actually at the wastewater treatment plant, not at Selby. We do have sludge there. We measure it, and it's true that someday, and maybe sooner than later, we will have to do some sludge removal to preserve that capacity for
But
treatment.
that, not. the
That's not
ponds.
really, we had other issues, like, so maybe 10 years ago, there were some concerns that the sludge wasn't really settling. It was getting mixed up in the waste, you know, we have these aerators that push
Yeah.
oxygen in the water. If the sludge is too high and it gets stirred up, then it can continue to flow through the wastewater treatment system. And there were some concerns with some evidence that some of that sludge was actually making its way out to Selby. And that is that would absolutely, it's a, you know, it's like a thick, you know, they're chunky, it's chunky water.
All right. Good job, Justin.
Creekside, this is again informational issues. Been having some challenges at the Creekside site. Just let me kind of orient you. You looked at a map, a bigger one earlier. This is our Creekside site. We have about 50 acres, 25 acres on each side of Creekside Ranch Road. Here's the railroad tracks. Our property is essentially this sort of fence line and in. Actually, on this side, it's this driveway too, but there's an easement to the neighbor. This is the district's Creekside wells are here. This is the deep well and the Creekside River well. And the fire training facility. You'll recall that there was a house on this property here. We bought this in 2017 and tore that house down.
Got rid of the cat issue.
Not yet.
Not yet?
I'm told by the cat lady, there's 2 cats out there.
Well, get out there, Justin.
And Justin's team made their contributions to cat problems over the years. But we won't get into that. There's a Quonset hut that sits right here and a garage that sits right here. Over the years, we've had various challenges with vandalism. Nothing horrific, but you know, people go down there to do what people do. Whatever, drinking and whatever, you know, other things they can't do in front of their parents. And that's mostly what we had faced. About a year ago, I'm sorry, maybe just before the big storms last year, we started getting complaints from a neighbor who lives in this subdivision over here about motorcycle riders coming out here, particularly on the weekends. The property is pretty accessible. There's fence lines here and here, and there's a gate that is about right here. But there's, you know, this is an open driveway, this is an open driveway, and so it's pretty easy to get onto this property. Well, the motorcycle problem went away because last year was so darn wet that it was too muddy, etc. Over this past winter, before the real heavy rains came, so maybe in January, we started noticing some more of a homeless problem. You know, people in a car down there, and actually John Bashong's office contacted us because he lives in this neighborhood and he's kind of eyes and ears for this area about homelessness. So we coordinated with the sheriff's department. Actually, the sheriff helped us evict, if that's a word, shoo off the car campers. We've posted no trespassing signs. We got complaints again before they got really muddy about the motorcycles, dirt bike riders out here. So we've been in contact with these various folks. We've had a couple more complaints or concerns raised about the homeless person, but they don't appear to be camping out there or staying out there. Occasionally they just drive for like the day. And these are folks that we have them in our parks too, right? They just stay in their car during the day. So Templeton is not immune to this challenge. Our current plan to help remedy this is to, this is labeled as Creekside Ranch Road, but the county considers the public road to end either here or here. I'm not sure which, but that the county does not consider this a public road. And so we've coordinated with them about installing a gate instead of down here where it leaves a bunch of driveways open, closing this road off here. And that's permissible because this driveway that sits here is an effective turnaround. So that gate is constructed now. We have our own crew that was building one. It's constructed but not yet installed. We have a utility operator, or kind of our welder, has been on leave for a few months and probably will continue, is expected to be gone for several more months. So we're looking at options about how to get that installed, that gate installed in the near future, but
So that's just an easement on that property then?
this right here,
Yeah, that's not an offer to dedicate.
no, I actually pulled up our title report for this property. It's an easement right here for the property that has this property.
But Creekside Ranch Road,
Oh, I don't,
what's the address? Do you know, does it have an address?
it must have, there was a house here. I don't know it. It might have been Phillips Road, actually. That's in the system. Anyhow, County Public Works is okay, that's moving that gate here. As a matter of fact, they're so convinced that it's not a county road that when there was vandalism to a county sign that is on this property, they told John Pashong that county is not responsible for it, to call Templeton CSD, so we removed the sign. Will say, and it's quite interesting,
Yeah, it used to be Phillips Road.
that the easements that are on this property, include access to the river as a public easement. So this gate issue, moving it's gonna be, I'm sure we're gonna get some issues because other people access some of this property. I know in the summertime, there's some property owners who live on the east side of the river that drive across this. But moving the gate, we think will at least make the access to the property a lot less, make the property a lot less accessible. So we'll kind of keep you posted. Oops. Messed up.
The chrome, the yellow, all the yellow, red. Go into the middle on the screen, it has the little circles. That one is the TCS.
Why don't I do this on my computer?
This is- We own the property north and south of Phillips Road or Creekside
Yep.
Ranch Road. So there's a certificate of compliance. Comes up as a paper road.
County's not claiming it.
The county doesn't want
They
it,
don't want any roads.
they don't want it in the road.
We tried.
I said, I said, I guarantee we didn't put up that big yellow sign that says road end,
Yeah.
pavement ends, and that's a county, but whatever. Sure was dedicated. Anyway, so we'll keep you posted on the Creekside issues, but that's our plan, and we've had good cooperation with the sheriff's department. And actually, quite honestly, with the homeless folks that have been down there are not combative or anything, it's not, right, it's been okay.
It's taken a staff time to go down there and deal with, but yeah, everybody's been safe. There hasn't been any,
No confrontations.
no confrontations.
It's been okay. The cat people are more time consuming, if you want to. That's because I have an 8-year history with them. Yes, and she tells me if there's somebody messing with a cat area. Like there's 2 cats left. 2. Just need another coyote. So the next item is, if you're ready to go on to it, is Evoqua, and we just wanted to provide a little update on that system.
Go ahead, I'm just multitasking to look, see what I can find.
Yeah, really quick, this is that odor control system that we installed over at Lift Station 3 to help out from lift station 3 through the middle of town over off Los Tablas. There was, some nuisance odors around the Chevron station, Las Tablas, down towards our west side lift station and then over to the treatment plant. So we had started that compound dosing back into last June. We had some failure of that equipment through the winter and just wanted to make you aware of it. It was challenging. It was their telemetry system, their SCADA system to mechanical failures of their pumps and dosing equipment. And so our staff on a regular basis are going by in their rounds and checking in on that equipment and going online and checking it out in their SCADA system and working with their teams to service, to maintenance, but to repair these components. So the last month, it's been back online and working appropriately as designed, as it should. And just wanted to let you know that we had some challenges through winter time working with that equipment. I think we're back where we need to be, and then headed into kind of the warmer months here, going into summer. Hopefully we'll be good, but it was a real challenge here during winter.
And you know, our folks, you know, when he says there's a problem with the equipment, it failed, it stopped dosing, and so it's like we didn't have it. So the impacts are immediately noticeable or virtually immediately noticeable, and so our residents will, if it fails again or fails repeatedly, we're gonna hear about it. So.
Other than that, when it's operating, it seems to be operating effective. It's been effective in taking care of some of those odors. Even at the wastewater treatment plant, we can get those nuisance odors directly, and it's been much different since that compound has been administered at lift station 3. So anyways, we've been getting less odor complaints, and we hope the system continues. We'll be monitoring, we'll be following up with our daily rounds and making sure that system stays operable.
Then we wanted to just update you on status. We last budget year, or for the current budget year, we had the budget included some funding for a couple of new service trucks or trucks for the utility crew, and this tractor that Justin discussed earlier. Just want to touch on those topics.
Yeah, first and foremost, I wanted to say how thankful we are to have those pieces of equipment, vehicles. They're make life a lot easier. They provide the means to being able to do some of this maintenance. And even going back to the Parks tractor, I mean, how wonderful to have that new Parks tractor and get out there into those fields and do maintenance and repairs. The skip and drag, that was a larger construction type tractor, and it was remarkable how much faster we were able to get in and out of a Selby and maintaining those ponds. We're taking it out now. We put a disc on it and we're taking it out to the Creekside Ranch area that we just had up on the screen, and we're dissing all that to try and keep some of the folks traveling through that our property,
Right.
you know, and just to perform weed abatement, those sorts of things as well. But there's so many things that those pieces of equipment are lending to, and you can see what you can do in the future, you know, that I just wanted to say, we've followed through and we purchased those pieces of equipment. We're using them. Thank you very much. They're helping us a great deal get the job done out there. So,
Money well spent.
yeah.
We have one utility truck with a hoist on it for picking up like lift station pumps and that kind of thing. That we've ordered that's not come in. Not sure if it's gonna make it during this fiscal year. Is it?
That's fair, yeah. We've continued to reach out. We were purchasing it through the California state bid list. And although we cut a PO to them back in fall, the way things are shaping up, it doesn't look like we're gonna get the piece of equipment in time for this fiscal year. And we're gonna be resubmitting for a new, piece of equipment in this next fiscal year that may carry over into next fiscal year. So it's unfortunate. Once they have their quota, once they've met their limit, then that's it, and you lose out. We did get the one pickup truck, so that was very helpful as
It's
well.
not an emergency. We've got an operating piece of equipment that's just due for reasons.
Yeah,
We're able to wait,
so
but
thank you.
yeah, that'll probably roll into next year. And then, there's just an item to discuss the meeting schedule for this committee. And potentially set another, committee meeting. We have identified additional topics that we would have wanted to go over, but we knew that, we already had a significant agenda put together.
So back to looking at what's on their waitlist application requirements, lead service line inventory. Source control updates sound like things for utilities, so review of virtual meter agreements. I mean, it seems like this facilities is kind of a catch-all for things. But you think it should go back to the board?
Well, yeah, definitely, if we're gonna be discussing, I mean, I would put it on a board agenda as soon as possible, and then we can go back to like the first couple items that were on there and put them back on if the board so, or else we'll come up with another committee. I mean, but I just, historically, we have never done it here, which doesn't mean a whole lot, but I mean, it's not, even though I guess you can read into what our policy says, but for the last 50 years, it's never been that way. And so I really think that if we want to have another committee, or we want to put it all on this committee, then I think it should be a board decision.
But it seems like the board made that decision when they made the definition of the facilities committee to handle it.
Obviously not for the last 50 years if they haven't done it. So, I mean, you can't have it both ways, I don't think. And I really think if we're gonna do that, it should probably be another committee. I can't see dumping all this onto Justin.
I just get all dumped on Justin.
Because if all of a sudden it's now, this is basically his committee for the wastewater. And that's what I'm saying, I think you ought to have a separate committee, because if it goes under the facilities committee, by definition, wastewater is under there, and he's in charge of that, so he would be staff.
So doesn't facilities include park and recs and admin, like all of it, and fire?
Not-
Because
Not to my understanding, but
So, yeah, I will say, this committee has been used for water wastewater issues. I can't think of something that was not a water wastewater issue that's come before the committee. But in reading the bylaws, it says land and buildings and operations, maintenance and operations of land and buildings, et cetera. So, practically, we've taken issues that affect the community center or the Parks and Recreation facilities, the building or the parks, to the Parks and Recreation and Solid Waste or Refuse Committee, I'm sorry, Solid Waste.
and that's the way I think it
That's
should be,
that's
but-
how we've dealt with it. Fire issues like the fire station issues, have gone to the fire committee, not to the facilities committee historically. But I agree that there's a mix up between the language in the bylaws and the practice of how the committee's been utilized.
so if Park and Recs is in charge of the community center and fire department is in charge of their facilities, and you want somebody to look at moving stuff around, then where does that fall?
Yeah, I think under that scenario, the board should either assign it to one of those, to assign it to a committee with for a specific reason, or create an ad hoc committee or something.
But
of
it
that
comes
nature.
back to the board.
Comes back to the
The
board.
committee doesn't have doodly squat to say about, they can make a
Right,
recommendation.
But who's gonna do the analysis? Which committee or which, or ad hoc, or, I mean, what we went through today earlier on for the agenda, if you're saying that doesn't belong on the agenda, then where does it go? I mean, I find like everybody's always trying to say, okay, this person's in charge of this, this person's in charge of this person's in charge of this person's in charge of this. And the problem is, there's no combined effort.
Who's gonna do it if we go your route? Who is then, let's just say that this committee is what you want, or think it should be, okay?
It's
Then
not what I
who's it?
think.
Oh, no, wait a minute, yeah, you do, but or if I want it. When this committee decides something, it's gotta go to the board, it's gotta be assigned to somebody. It's not a matter of, it's automatically gonna be here or there. I mean, you're right, somebody's gotta take charge of coordinating between the fire and Parks and Rec, but it's not this committee. This committee can recommend that this be done, but then it's gonna have to be assigned to somebody. It's not an automatic thing, so, and to me, who's more? I mean, who is more knowledgeable about what should be done at the Parks and Rec than Melissa or the fire department than Tom? But this committee's not gonna solve that problem. Even if it's the way that you read it or think it should be. That's all I'm saying.
But who's gonna go over and look at Parks and Rec and go over and look at the community center and say, oh, this could be done, or we could move this here, or what's the cost for doing this between the facilities? If we're constantly assigning, okay, you, the fire committee, just do this, you, the park and rec committee.
It's
just
all
do
gotta
this.
go back to the board. To me, it sounds like you're saying that once it goes to the fire committee, once it goes here, it's a done deal. Well, it's not. All you can do is make a recommendation to the board. And then the board can say, okay, this has gotta be between the fire department and Melissa. And I would say Tom and Melissa should get together and make that decision and it's not gonna make a difference what committee it's on in the board.
I think you need. I think that when you assign it to, I think that there needs to be somebody communicating between the two, because nobody is doing that now, and one of the reasons we have a $5 million bid is because nobody looked at alternatives of what else to do. And so we have a fire department that's never gonna get built and never be. It's never gonna get built.
I don't see
because
how it's gonna get built if we're doing what you recommend.
I'm questioning, I'm trying to figure out how to coordinate this kind of activity. So
Okay,
there's-
how is it gonna be coordinated if we do this?
Well, so how is Melissa and Tom gonna get together and look at the rooms and say, okay, you can do this here and this here and that here, and oh, we can shift this here to over there? I mean, Melissa's plate is full. You should have a committee take a look at it and
Who are
say,
you gonna assign to the committee, other than Jeff, who his plate is also full, that's gonna see that this is done? That's my point. You can have the committee, I agree with what you're saying, okay? But how is having this committee or even another committee going to accomplish that?
well, okay, so if you don't do it, then you don't ever get a fire station. You have
I'm
to
not
have
arguing the
somebody
point,
do
I'm
that.
asking you, who is gonna do it? You're the one that's concerned, I'm concerned also. We're concerned that this person and this person aren't getting together and discuss various subjects. By having a committee, how are we gonna see that happens? That's that, right?
We're going to go through and evaluate that. That's part of that committee's So in other words, we would say, okay, let's take the floor plan to the fire department. Let's look at the size of this room. What can you fit in here? How can we get an estimate to do this? What is the cost for moving the equipment from here over to the community
Sounds to me
center?
like that's micromanaging, but that's just me. But let's take it to the board and get it solved. I mean, you and I are gonna solve the problem.
Well,
And I agree that something has to be done
well,
also.
so when you came up with this agenda, did you come up with this agenda with Naveed?
I think when you requested that this be reviewed, I looked at that's when I read the bylaws again and said, okay, it's filled these topics, so I had suggested to you that, well, maybe not tackling that very specific issue about altering the fire station expansion, the committee could review the existing buildings and existing uses, and that's how we came up with that agenda
Because
description.
in a meeting, Naveed.
I did tell Naveed this is what I was gonna do.
Mhm.
Because I didn't feel like this committee should take over the work that the fire committee had done before. And then Naveed he had some concerns about whether the fire committee should have even done those things. So maybe I've misinterpreted the goal, at least in his case, the goals of the committee. I think the issue you're talking about is if we wanna press pause on the fire master plan, at least from the facilities point of view, and re-examine that needs to be formally assigned. And that, it'll kind of depend, the staff that get involved are gonna kind of depend on where this might head. I mean, I don't think that moving the items from this room to the community center are a huge burden. I think it's doable. But what is the value of this room to the fire station, and what savings does it create? Because to me, there's no point in doing it unless this is
Right.
gonna be real valuable, right?
So who determines that?
Yeah, I think that the board could appoint a committee to do it, or an ad hoc committee to assist with that effort.
Because to me, I don't think the fire station's ever gonna get built. And so we've got to accommodate our fire crew. And so is there a way of getting that crew accommodated rather than having somebody sleep over here? And so are there alternatives?
Well, the one alternative that we had briefed with the fire committee and the board is
The modular
the
house.
modular as a temporary or interim sort of solution. But, and really, we're getting into the weeds here, but the fire chief would really prefer not to have to go that route if we can do something better. More permanent, even if it's less than what we came up with. So we're still examining other concepts internally, like, Tom thought about what if we convert the upstairs in this area? Well, we had a structural engineer come and take a look, and it doesn't look like that's something that's very doable. So some of the challenges that we have, like for this room, is like every bedroom has to have an egress, like a secondary egress. So you can't put a bedroom in this corner because there's no egress.
You have to put it over.
You have to be, or we have to blow up this back area and do something differently there. It's all possible, but how much value would it be? How
Well,
much savings are we creating to make moving the functions that happen in here worthwhile? That's, I guess,
Well, if it's less than 5 million, it would be
yeah,
doable, right? Because we know it's 5 million and counting, because prices continue to go up and all that kind of stuff. Supplies tend to go up. So, if it's less than 5 million, then, and it's a workable permanent solution. But the thing is that I can't decide that. So where does that get looked at?
Well, to me, it gets looked at the board. You bring up that on the board and say, yeah, it's a good idea. Somebody needs to look at that. And then it's assigned to somebody to do.
Well, I think.
I've never heard what you just said today. Personally heard, that we should have somebody get together with Tom and Melissa or whatever and do that. That's something, okay, I've never heard. It sounds like a good idea to me on that particular service thing. And so if that had come from a committee to the board, I have to say, yeah, okay, let's have somebody look at that. I mean, that's the way the system is supposed to work.
Okay, so then this board wants to make a recommendation to bring that to the board for a discussion item onto who should look at that. That's what you're saying?
Well, under normal circumstances, I'm saying that we should go to the board and say, what's your preference? What's the preference? Do we need to add this to this committee and change or even, I would say we have to change our policy on the facilities committee. Should we add another committee that will look at this overall? Because all we can do is recommend anyway. So we're gonna recommend whatever we do in the committee, it's gonna be a recommendation to the board.
Right. I
And
understand.
then the board's gonna have to have the same discussion we're having, and then they're gonna vote on it. And it'll either pass or it won't pass. I mean, so I'm not sure that adding something to this committee or even a new committee is gonna solve the bottom line problem.
Well, I've noted from your earlier discussion that you wanted, well, at least I think you wanted to have the board validate or clarify the role of this committee. It's historically been used as I'll call it Water and Wastewater Facilities Committee, with the terms water and wastewater not being included in the bylaws, which led to this ambiguity. But if you read it cold, it reads like the committee would be in charge of all district land, or not in charge, but review district land maintenance and operations and all facility maintenance, including buildings. So there's no, it would be universal, including, the fire station or the community center or whatever, but that's just not how it's been used in the past. So I think we could bring that to the board as a policy call. They could then decide, okay, no, the facilities committee should be limited to water and wastewater utilities, or no, it has this much broader authority and maybe we need a water and wastewater group, because I agree, otherwise, I need to know what you want to talk about so we can have the right people at the committee meetings and I don't want to water down there are going to be material water and wastewater utility issues. And just the wastewater challenges that we know about, the general permit issues are gonna be significant, that we'll wanna, if for no other reason, just to make sure that you're in the know about what we're dealing with, so that when items come before the board, or we talk about how much something's gonna cost, you're not shocked.
I know from being on staff, I mean, I would be really upset if the board would all of a sudden add this committee and then they come back and say, this is what we want you to do, when I have completely the opposite and I'm supposed to be in charge. And I've been in that position a lot. I mean, so for instance, if I'm Tom and he doesn't, for whatever reason, and he knows more about it than anybody in this room or on the board, because that's why it's the fire.
That's why he should be here. So if you, whether it's this committee or an ad hoc committee, we need to have Melissa and Justin and Tom here to talk about, this item and.
I
get
would
input.
disagree with that, but then they should all be here. I mean, it's just another meeting that they're gonna have to go to, and everybody in the world complains about there's too many meetings, but.
How do you how do you resolve? So then who should do that? Because you're
Well,
saying
that,
staff
again,
is.
I can't decide that, you can't, it's gotta come to the board, I don't know, okay, I'll answer your question, I don't know.
Because I don't see how anything's gonna get resolved. Okay, so staff is overworked, too many meetings, and we don't wanna make another committee. Well, then just put your hands up in the air and give up. I mean, I don't think that's your
Well,
job.
no, but I also don't think I think what you're saying should have probably happened a long time ago,
But
the
thing
staff's the one that should be concerned about doing this, and I'm not sure they have it in so much in a certain extent. It's not the board micromanaging and saying, okay, you guys didn't do this, let's do this, that, and the other thing. To me, that's the micromanage.
Well, I think we have two issues.
Yeah.
One is, what is the role of this committee?
Right.
Does it include these other facilities or facility expansion or things that are not water and wastewater related? That getting clarification on that would be helpful
Well,
going forward.
The policy doesn't say water and
Agreed.
wastewater
Agreed.
only,
Agreed.
and
Uh,
so.
But the
because-
policy that's over 50 years old, that's never been adhered to, probably doesn't hold a lot of weight. Even if he went to court with that. So anyway, that's my,
Okay, I don't, okay, okay, I, no, understand your position, but you don't have to back me on it. Okay,
not attacking.
yeah, you are.
Do you want to set a next meeting date? Eric's not here. We did get an email from him, that he got stuck on a job site and, wasn't able to make it.
Well, I think that in my mind, I would like to set up monthly meetings, so that we have we don't have this problem where, you know, here it is May, and this is the first meeting of this committee for this year, which means we may only have one other committee meeting this year. And it seems like if we have these things coming up, we should set up sort of like a monthly meeting date. And then if we don't need to meet, we cancel it. But other than that, we all block it out so that we know to attend it. And then, you know, in between, if we go to the board and say, how do you want to handle this item that came up today? You know, then it may put more work on this board or less work on this committee. I'm sorry, not board, on this committee. But my suggestion would be to schedule, you know, either every month or every other month, a set date so that we have that time blocked out. Because otherwise Carrie sends us 3 months of things.
I would agree, but I also would add that if the public person can't attend, that. I don't know how you say that nicely, but.
Well, Eric was confirmed he confirmed his ability to attend today.
Well, I know, but she's been trying to set this committee up since March.
Well, it's not
Just-
only the
yeah.
public member that makes that challenging. I mean, it's just a matter of facts. I think, you know, last fall, we brought this issue before the board, and the board said, no, keep them on an as-call basis. We talked about making them standing, or there are standing committees, but regular meeting dates. And that was not kind of what was chosen. Remember, we have 4 of these committees. I do think you can pick it. I think you can certainly pick another meeting date today. And maybe every other month would work. We can't support monthly committee, like that'd be 48 committee meetings a year.
Mhm.
We can't support that. That's too much work.
Right.
Yeah,
But I think the point is, if you schedule them, you can delete them.
yeah, you
And
can.
everybody knows, and then you don't have to go through the problem. I don't, if you set a meeting every month or every other month, I wouldn't expect to have a meeting every month or every other month.
Right,
But you
But
want
it's,
on your calendar.
it's on that date, and if you need it, you use it.
right, and then you know. it's-
I don't,
Yeah, but I think we should do, if we're gonna do something like that, we should look at it from I'm happy to set your next meeting whenever you'd like, or whenever we're all available, but, and since Eric's not here, that's a little bit unfair to even try, but, I think if we're gonna go to a regularly scheduled meeting, even if they end up getting canceled is that something we wanna do for is that your recommendation that maybe we would do that for all of the committees
I don't
We
think
have the
that's-
same problem.
I don't think that's our call. I'm just saying
for this?
for this meeting, and that then if other committees decide they want to do the same thing, that's up to them. We don't need to micromanage the other committees, but if we have sewer stuff coming up that's imperative, plus, you know, updates on what FEMA is gonna do and stuff, it seems like there's some hot items here that rather than waiting another 5 months, that maybe we should
Yeah,
try
yes.
to get something in July. If that, you know, maybe July, August, so that if July doesn't work, then we have something on August already. You know, we don't have to have these every month, or July and September or something like that on the dates.
yeah, I agree. You and Justin should decide if we're gonna have a meeting or not, but it's gonna be in this time period.
Yeah, nothing here is like super critical, but we have materials to review with you, so if you had another meeting in a month, we would be able to bring items to you.
Well, and I would think if the board decides that we're gonna change this committee or another committee that it's changed, then we have one sooner than later.
So this wait list application requirements review of water meter, is that something that fits? I mean, I don't understand now where these things like the source control update and lead service line inventory, I'm assuming is sewer,
Water,
water.
Yeah, those are utility,
they're all utility,
all four of those bullet points are
they're utility issues.
based.
Okay, so they would stay with this committee no matter what the board decides on the other thing. So how imperative are those
they're not.
4 topics there to be talked about?
They're not, none of them are urgent. They're informational.
Okay, so you think a meeting in July?
Oh, yeah,
Yep.
I can, absolutely.
Do you want us to, maybe what you want us to do is reach out early, like ahead of, like now with a doodle poll for your July or something with Eric's availability as well.
Maybe just the first 2 weeks in July. So that. I mean, I know we have
Yeah,
July.
I understand your goal of trying to get stuff on the calendar. I wonder though, if we get too many and they get canceled, are they gonna be treated like, so if I book a meeting down, I don't take that day off, or I don't.
Right,
And so I wanna make sure, I wouldn't wanna do it unless we were gonna use it. Cause then I'm holding that time open. It's all possible, but, and I understand the challenges of getting this doodle poll. You know, it has become more complicated, having just one more, it's interesting, we've only added 1 or 2 people to these committees in the last couple of years, but we've made it like 4 times as hard to get the meetings set, but you want us, we could, maybe while you're here, you wanna pick a date, a tentative date, and we can confirm with Eric?
that's fine with me, but I mean, the thing is that too soon for you?
No,
On these
no,
other ideas?
these items we could have done anytime. I mean, we just had too much we knew we had 2 hours worth of material already, so I just postponed things that were less time sensitive.
Okay, so I know a Thursday is always good for me. I don't know,
We're talking about what, you said the first 2 weeks?
of July, yeah.
Well, the first Thursday is the 4th, so it's probably
Let's
not,
have it on the 4th.
the
Perfect.
Well, I'll bring fireworks.
11th is the next Thursday.
I'll be in town, I'll be in the office on the 18th would be the next July 4th I'm out, and the 11th I'll be out.
You get too much vacation.
No comment.
Yeah, so
July
some,
18th, I
yeah.
go into surgery.
I'll be at Vaseline that whole week.
so the doodle polls actually do work okay if people,
Okay, send out a doodle poll for the month of July.
and you're kind of be unavailable from the 18th for a bit.
Hello.
From the 18th all the way until August, she'll be available.
I haven't booked my summer up very well yet. Guess I'm gonna get busy.
It's,
Hope I'm not going to surgery.
So if I'm doing
You wanna
July,
do
you
my
said when
surgery?
I don't know what you're having.
when are you gone in July?
Well, maybe I don't care what you're having done, but yeah.
July 4th.
No matter what it is,
It's a-
I'll turn
I don't
you
wanna
on.
do it. Gonna work.
I would be here, the Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday prior to the 4th.
That works for me,
There's no answer to this. So,
Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, prior to the 4th, and then between the 11th and the 18th, are you here or not?
I believe I'm,
You're not.
to the 18th.
I don't have, unless I have your time off on my calendar yet, but we will get that.
I'm free that week other than,
so the 4th is that Thursday, and so,
I mean, it's gonna be a tough week, because we have a lot of people gonna be trying to be gone.
and it's actually, so it's July 8th then, through the 12th is the following week.
Mhm.
I will be, out, returning the 15th of July, Monday.
Okay, so how about the 15th, 16th?
Yeah, and so that 18th, that Thursday, if that work, or if Thursday is bad, then that Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday of, so then the 15th, 16th, 17th,
Uh-huh,
those absolutely I would be,
available.
what
absolutely.
about the last week of June?
I'm here the last week in June.
Yeah, that's not good for me.
So, I mean, it's just.
It's like-
That's why.
Impossibility.
We'll get some.
It's horrible. Terrible.
We'll let Miss
How
Doodle,
about July
Miss
15th?
Doodle figure it out.
July 15th?
Which year?
Yeah,
2026.
Yeah, the problem, see, that was the day I'm trying to get a day to go see my son in Colorado.
Plus,
That would take that out.
plus you get too far ahead, things come up.
I know,
You know,
Well, that's part of the thing, that's why you book it. So then you work around it. Okay,
Okay,
we'll let Carrie do her magic.
we'll figure something.
Miss Doodle,
Call me
Oh.
with-
Is the meeting adjourned?
Oh,
Meeting adjourned.
thank you.